Movie to TV adaptations are way more common than you think. Half the time, you don't even realize a movie you liked became a show, or a show you liked started out as a movie. In most cases, movies are tightly structured with one big climax and usually one central theme. There isn't always time to fully build characters when the focus is fitting the plot into 1 to 2 hours. A show is slower paced with deeper characterization and multiple arcs. I'm a TV lover. I will always take more of what I love. I like character development, backstories, diving into the lore, and movies just don't always have time to do that. Today, I'm breaking down the 3 categories of movie to TV adaptations, a bunch of examples, when it works, when it doesn't, and why Hollywood keeps doing this. So grab a snack, hit that subscribe button, and let's get into it. Movie to TV adaptations fall into 3 categories: cash-ins, expansions, and fix-it shows, and each one kind of determines whether it succeeds or not. Category 1, the cash-in show, which usually fails since there's rarely a reason to remake something that was a good standalone. Shows in this category often rely on name recognition and miss what made the original work. Most don't hit the same level of success because they either steer too far from the original vibe or copy it too closely. And either way, original fans usually hate it. The 1997 I Know What You Did Last Summer is a classic, fast-paced teen slasher with iconic chase scenes. The 2021 series of the same name is a more modernized, slow-paced, intense teen drama focused on storytelling with more complex characters and a less traditional slasher approach. It dives deeper into character background and subplot development, but it doesn't succeed in making us care about the characters that much. I like both versions for the most part, but objectively, I do think the series was a cash-in since the original was so popular and the reboot got no publicity. The fanbase was small while it was running, and nobody has talked about it since. Of course, the characters had deeper development, so it mattered a bit more when they died or turned out to be evil. The plot was unique, and it was an interesting subversion of the original, having Allison run over her own sister and then take over her life. And then it turns out she did it on purpose, and the killer is her best friend who was in love with Lennon, her sister. But then Allison lets her get away with it, and they end up together. It was kind of more screamified than I Know What You Did Last Summer. But I like the psychological angle and the plot twist. It's more fun than just the guy is back to kill us. They also went supernatural at the end, which was probably a detriment, but they were about to bring my girl Riley back to life, so I support it. However, at the end of the day, it was ultimately a failure compared to the movie, according to viewership and notability. It wasn't up to par with the original, and it was giving more slasher euphoria. It should have given itself a new name, like I Did Something Bad Last Summer. I don't know, I'm not good at making screenplay names. The 1999 Cruel Intentions was a 90s classic centered on bored, wealthy teens in New York City with a bet based on sex and boredom. The 2024 show of the same name was a reimagined Next Chapter, focusing on the high-stakes, ruthless power dynamics amongst college students, specifically in Greek life. The original was a cult classic and people loved it. The show took that idea and changed everything. It still has the weird, incesty step-siblings, the bet, and the good girl, but the characters are completely different, and so are the motives. The series dives more into their toxic upbringing and the influence of bad parenting. They try to humanize the Catherine character, Caroline, when the original was so twisted because she did it for fun, not for strategy or pleasing her mother. I actually loved Cece's character, aka the Cecile of the show, but the rest of the characters kind of felt dull, like they were trying too hard to be the originals, but not well. I'm not a super fan of the original, and I didn't hate the show as a standalone, it just didn't work as a reboot, and that showed with the viewership and the reception. The 1996 Scream was a fast-paced, satirical, cult classic filled with meta-slasher references. The 2015 series was a slower teen drama with slasher elements, deeper character development, and more brutal, varied kills. A guy gets cut in half in front of his girlfriend when she trips a wire. It's crazy. The show is also meta.
You can't do a slasher movie as a TV series.
And the character deaths are more impactful because we end up caring a lot more about them than we do about characters we've only known for 10 minutes in a Scream movie. It's been called a guilty pleasure or a decent standalone slasher, but it isn't very well received amongst original Scream fans, being compared to Pretty Little Liars with the drama, secrets, and bullying plots. In my opinion, the show had a better backstory, similar to a Jason Voorhees type thing, but like if the killer was the kid of Jason and the final girl's mom, which is wild. The show also explores more about the psychological effects of being stalked by a killer. Emma has PTSD after season 1 with panic attacks and hallucinations. Brooke shows signs of depression after losing her boyfriend and dad. It didn't hit for people like the original movies, probably because slasher fans prefer fast-paced thrills rather than the slow psychological thriller. Many people probably don't even know there was a Scream show because it didn't blow up like the movies, but I like it. Some honorable mentions are 10 Things I Hate About You, Clueless, and School of Rock, because half of you probably don't even know these huge movies had TV adaptations. I didn't know Clueless had one, and I can't attest to it being bad because I didn't watch it, but it surely didn't blow up as big as the movie. Category 2, the expansion show, which is the most common and usually the most successful. This is when the original left the people wanting more from the universe, more lore, more characterization, and more of the overall story. Shows in this category build on the existing world, add depth to characters, and extend the original, as opposed to trying to replace it. The 2018 Cobra Kai is one of the best examples of this done right. Instead of remaking the 1984 Karate Kid, it continues the story showing us where Johnny and Daniel ended up. It keeps the nostalgia, brings back old characters, has callbacks like the one-footed kick, and pays homage to the original, with Daniel continuing Miyagi's legacy and Johnny taking over Cobra Kai. Characters aren't just good or evil anymore, they're messy and human. There are moments we don't like the classic good guys and moments we root for the typical bad guys getting redeemed. Johnny was a really funny character, and I love that they brought him back to turn him from a one-note bully to a fully developed character with a redemption arc, a backstory, and relationships that actually matter. At times, it was more camp and lighthearted than the original, while also having really dark moments, like Miguel almost dying, Sam's PTSD, and Tori's home life. I loved this reboot because it expands the original world instead of replacing it, and that's why it works. Plus, it didn't promise to be like the original by calling itself the same thing. The 2021 Chucky show is another example of kicking up the camp. The original 1988 Child's Play had some camp moments in later films, but if you ask 5-year-old me who watched 5 minutes of it, it was traumatizing. Season 1 kept a bit of the darkness, with Chucky succeeding in killing some of the kids, something he never succeeded at with Andy. But his personality is a lot more camp in the show for some reason.
Mommy says real killing is bad.
Yeah, well, Mommy's full of shit.
There's also Tiffany, who ups the camp level. Devon Sawa coming back every season as a new character after dying. Loved that. And Chucky splitting his soul into multiple dolls, which gets confusing. Characters like Nika, Andy, and Kyle also show up. Chucky's non-binary kid makes an appearance, now split into 2 humans. But nonetheless, the show builds on the lore a ton, expands the universe, and continues the story, which isn't technically needed after the Chucky movies. But the campness of the show got me over the trauma of first watching it as a kid, so I'm glad it exists. But upset that it ended on a cliffhanger before cancellation. That should be illegal. My third example in this category is a bit different from the last two. The 1996 From Dusk Till Dawn was a fun, fast-paced, one-night thriller based around a vampire strip club. The show's been called a novelization of the movie. It sticks to lots of major plot points, but has more time to provide backstory, add details, and flesh out characters only briefly touched upon in the movie. The issue is that the fan base was split. Some loved the slowing down of the plot and the added characterization and lore, while others hated how different it was from the original. The movie had no overarching plot, no master to be defeated, just vampires attacking. I had never watched the movie previously to preparing for this video, and in my opinion, the show is better. I would personally put it in Fix It, but I'm someone who prefers to get to know the characters and have more plot than just kills and action. And because the movie did well objectively, I put it into this category. This is the most common category, with major franchises like Marvel, Star Wars, and even High School Musical successfully expanding into TV, because people already care about the world and they'll watch anything they throw in front of them, me included. That's the same with examples like What We Do in the Shadows, Friday Night Lights, It, An Interview with a Vampire, which all had successful movies and shows. Category 3, the Fix It show, which is a hit or miss and the rarest category. Also a bit controversial, so my bad if you're offended. Shows in this category often try to improve or reimagine stories that didn't blow up the first time around. It's risky because if it didn't do well the first time, who's to say it will if you remake it? Also, the originals often have a cult fan base who love the original and they compare hard. But often, these shows end up being better than the original and blowing up. For example, the 1997 Buffy the Vampire series. I love this show.
You're going to hell.
Save me a seat.
The 1992 movie, not so much.
I How's it going?
You're obviously having a bad hair day.
I'm joking. But it's not as good as the show, and it was not received well. It was called terrible and a shallow teen comedy, though some found the camp entertaining. However, the show was a beloved, dramatic cult phenomenon. Buffy went from a shallow cheerleader to a more mature, nuanced hero. The creator, Joss Whedon himself, didn't like the final product, which was altered from his darker script. The movie did get a small cult following, which led to the TV show, where Whedon got to create what he actually wanted to, and it worked. This show is the definition of the fix-it category. The next example could be seen as controversial, since the original 1985 Teen Wolf movie was a moderate success at the time and celebrated as a nostalgic, lighthearted 80s comedy classic with a quirky premise, despite the second one being a disappointment. The 2011 series was a dark, dramatic reboot. The first few seasons had some camp like the movie, but mixed it with a moody teen drama vibe, and later seasons just fully dove into the darkness. The original movie didn't have a ton of great reviews, said to have a weak script and calling it a shallow comedy that didn't age well. So I added this one to the fix-it category because, in my humble opinion, the TV show made it better by adding lore and characters and development. The 2016 Shadowhunters show is generally preferred for its character development, romantic storylines, expansive world building, and strong Alec and Magnus casting, though the 2013 Mortal Instruments movie is more loyal to the books, has higher quality production, and better Jace and Clary casting, not to mention Robert Sheehan. Love him. It suffers from rushed pacing and was criticized for being too similar to other dystopian films. The show increases character ages to 18+ for more mature content, and altered storylines like Simon being turned into a vampire much earlier, and there was such a lack of Simon and Isabel, who were my favorite in the books. I did not need him and Clary to get together, even if it happened in the books. There was no chemistry. Clary and Jace didn't even have much chemistry in the show either, but their chemistry in the movie was intense. Objectively, this example is in the fix-it category because of the terrible movie reviews and the attempt to remake it better. However, I wouldn't say it completely succeeded with that. I enjoyed both versions for the most part, but I do think the movie was more enjoyable. It still got 3 seasons and completed itself, so what do I know? An honorable mention is The Vampire Academy 2014, which was a flop, and Julie Plec, the creator of The Vampire Diaries, tried to take it on as a TV show in 2022, which also flopped. The show might actually be worse than the movie. The only better things were that Dimitri didn't look like a fully grown teacher dating a teenage girl, and they had a better dynamic. Plus my favorite couple, Sonia and Mikhail, who were only briefly shown or mentioned in the movie, but the show killed him off, which wasn't supposed to happen. They got married in the books. So I stand by saying the show did not deserve a second season. It pissed me off. Some shows blur the lines, like Bates Motel, which is technically an expansion of the universe, but feels like a fix-it because it adds depth to something that was originally pretty simple. And I think it was better than the movie. So why do some of these work and others completely fail? A reboot or remake will work when it keeps the essence of the original, but expands on the lore or characters or plot. Don't copy the original, but don't stray so far that if it didn't have the same name, you wouldn't even recognize what it's referencing. Some may argue Cruel Intentions. It has to understand the core of the original, like Cobra Kai with its references and cameos, but build something new with the universe. Add and expand, like a new generation and redemption for previous villains. This is like all the Marvel shows expanding on the universe by giving certain fan favorite characters their own focus, like Hawkeye, WandaVision, and Agatha all along. Sure, they won't be as popular as the original movies, but I wouldn't say they're universally hated, and the superfans will still probably tune in. And then there's the rare cases like Buffy or Teen Wolf, who took something with potential that didn't quite blow up the way it could have, and made it blow up. They can still have those funny moments, but if you want a show to work, the people need to care about the story and the characters. I'd say that's what I Know What You Did Last Summer and Cruel Intentions failed at, making people genuinely care about the characters. The Cruel Intentions characters felt like pale comparisons to the originals, and the I Know What You Did Last Summer characters felt like they were trying to mix classic slasher tropes with regular modern teens in a way where they seemed very shallow and boring. Shows that fail are trying too hard to be nostalgic and capitalize on a franchise that did well with no real purpose for the show to exist. They're focused more on aesthetic and the brand of the original and not worrying about building actual substance for the show. Basically, they think, oh, the name speaks for itself, but no, you actually have to try. So why does Hollywood keep doing this? I don't know, ask Hollywood. I'm kidding. Ultimately, it's because these movies prove themselves as able to get views, build a fan base, have success, get positive reception. There are some anomalies, like in the last category, but even then, Buffy, Teen Wolf, and Mortal Instruments had their own cult fan bases, even if the movies weren't successful. If a production company or a creator wants something safe to develop, they'll pick up a reboot. New shows are such a hit or miss in today's day and age, as seen by the graveyard of one-season wonders on streaming platforms. RIP The Society. On rare occasions, they pick shows up for more seasons, but most of the time they have to become absolutely huge, like Stranger Things or Love is Blind. And once something has proven itself able to build a huge viewership, they're the safe bet. It's also why it's so hard to break in as a newbie writer or director in Hollywood. People only trust people and concepts that have already proven themselves. There's an audience, it made money, or already has a fan base. Plus, it's the easy route. Why would you write a new concept when you could just make 20 more Marvel TV shows based on a universe that's already been fleshed out? Why take the risk? Of course, there are moments when the movie leaves too much unexplored and a TV show can really add to the story, like from Dusk Till Dawn where they went in more depth about the lore, or Chucky where they may have wanted to show where the characters ended up. Their stories weren't over yet. Cobra Kai is a great example of this because I love that they showed us where Johnny and Daniel ended up and we got to see a more nuanced version of the franchise where characters aren't just good and evil, there's middle grounds. And Johnny gets his redemption. So when should a movie become a TV show? If the story is unfinished, if the characters or lore need expanding on, if a show could exist and succeed without relying on the original brand, and only if the creators can keep the franchise alive while not copying it. At the end of the day, they're not going to stop, and we're going to keep eating it up. Me especially. I watched all these shows. I don't hate any of them. Yes, some of them may not be great objectively, but I usually always enjoy myself. All this information was just an observation that I've made, and I will watch anything you put in front of me. So, I'm a hypocrite. Subscribe. Comment below your opinion on movie to TV adaptations, or if you have any more I missed to add to the list, and what category you think it would fall into. And if you agree or disagree with anything I said today, let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.